What's going on, man? Welcome back to the basement. I'm Ron, and I got a lot of questions in the comments, got a lot of questions on Twitter. Everyone's asking me these start-sit questions. It is literally it's Wednesday today. It was Tuesday yesterday, so I love coming out with these videos because I can kind of, give you guys an idea of where I'm at. I don't even sit down to do my start-sit, my weekly rankings until Thursday, so it's hard to answer those kind of questions this early in the week. Now, we're going to go through a couple of these running back matchups, give you guys a nice little first look at what running backs I like this week, my must starts, and then also my must sits at the running back position. Now, before we get into the video, make sure you go down below, subscribe, and if at any point in time this video seems insightful, you laugh, you took something positive from this video, make sure you go down below and leave a like. It helps us out a bunch on the algorithm. Now, let's get into the video. Let's go.
Thirsty, trying to choose. I know I'm critical.
Starting with our running back must start of the week, it's DAndre Swift. I know he's a clear start. If you have DAndre Swift, you're probably playing him, but look, fellas, we've got bye weeks now. There's not a ton of fringe plays out there. So I also want to highlight some of these higher echelon guys that I think should be upgraded this week. So DAndre Swift has kind of been a fringe RB1 type play. I think this week he is a borderline top 5 play, and it's because his matchup at home against the Bengals is extremely juicy. The Bengals have allowed a ton of targets to opposing running backs. We saw Najee Harris again. I want to say he had 19 targets against the Steelers, and this is a really good tweet by Jacob Sanderson here. I keep mentioning him, but he's a really good follow on Twitter. Maybe one day I'll have him on the channel. He's a really sharp analyst out there, and he noted that 4 out of the 5 teams who have played the Bengals thus far set or tied their season high in running back targets that week, allowing 46 targets to the running back position, and the Detroit Lions lead the league in running back targets. So I love Swift in this matchup. It kind of sets up perfectly for his brand of football as that, receiving back on a bad team. Then we have James Robinson at home against Miami, and I'll take my L on James Robinson. I said, sit him against the Bengals in week 4. James Robinson has then averaged 21.2 PPR points per game and is the RB8 since I said that, and I was skeptical with Hyde coming back last week, right? So against the Bengals on that Thursday night game where it was Trevor Lawrence versus Joe Burrow, Carlos Hyde was an inactive in that game, so James Robinson saw 90% plus of the snaps and the opportunity and looked really good. Hyde comes back last week, and Robinson still looked great. He maintained a great role. He had 60% of the short down and distance snaps, 60% of the passing work. Now, when I bring up short down and distance, passing work, all that good stuff, that's from PFF.com. Shout out to Dwayne McFarland. He does this utilization report every single week on there. One of the most must-read articles that I read every single week. Now, James Robinson has also been a really good in real life running back, one of the best pure rushers in the league to this point. He's first in yards after contact per attempt, second in rushing grade, third in elusive rating, fourth in rushing yards over expectation per attempt. He is doing everything in his power to churn out yards, even though he's on a pretty bad team. I have him as a fringe top 8 play at home against the Dolphins, who are giving up the second most fantasy points to opposing running backs. Which then brings us to an absolute workhorse. Darrell Henderson is going to be in New York against the Giants, and he has a great matchup this week. Now, I know Sony Michel saw a bunch of touches last week, and that's why I kind of want to clear the air with Darrell Henderson. A lot of people are going to see, Sony Michel got worked in last game. The problem is that Henderson had an injury. In the second quarter, he came out with some kind of injury. I don't know if it was an arm, if it was a strain. I don't know what it was. But you can see on this chart provided by Akash at YZR Fantasy, the blue dots on this chart are Henderson, right? So you can see first quarter through second quarter, he's looking great. And then Sony Michel comes in. Sony gets all of the touches in the second quarter, and that's when Henderson had his injury. Then Henderson comes back after half, and after that, Sony Michel only sees 2 more touches. So Henderson's in a spot where if he's healthy, he's going to see 90% of the opportunities in this offense, and this is going to be a high-scoring offense. He is the RB1 on this team, and they're playing against a Giants team where they're favored by double-digit points. I want to say it's minus 10.5 is the spread, and the Giants are giving up the 8th most points to opposing fantasy running backs. So this is a match made in heaven for Henderson in a week with a bunch of buys. Which then brings us to Fournette, who had another great week. He saw 12 carries for 67 yards and a touchdown. He had 4 catches for 43 yards through the air. He is becoming probably the poster child for the people who went hero RB, aka myself, or zero RB. He has looked great as, a guy that you could have gotten in the 8th or 9th round of your drafts. And he's coming off back-to-back weeks with top 15 finishes in PPR leagues. And I love his matchup this week. He's going to be in Philadelphia. They're favored by 7. And I think this game is going to be extremely close to that Monday night game between Philadelphia and the Cowboys, where the Cowboys got up big all game. The Eagles abandoned the run game. the Cowboys got up big, just started feeding Ezekiel Elliott. I think we're going to see the exact same thing happen here. The Eagles happen to be the league's biggest run funnel. They're allowing 74% of the yards allowed coming on the ground from weeks 1 through 4. Now, we don't have the week 5 data yet, but this is a chart from David Zack. Buccaneers are going to get up big in this game. They're going to end up running the ball a ton. This defensive line isn't as good as advertised, so I like Fournette as a, pretty firm top 15 running back this week. Then our last running back is going to be Zack Moss at the Tennessee Titans, and he's now finished in PPR as the RB15, the RB25, the RB26. He's established himself as the lead back on one of the league's highest scoring offenses, and he's taken command of the backfield's rush attempts, the short down and distance work, the passing work. He is the running back you want to own in this offense. And it's pretty crazy when we think about it because the guy was literally a healthy scratch in week 1. So it's pretty wild to think about that. I want to say Matt Breida was out there instead of Zack Moss, but this isn't even like a crazy good game against the Tennessee Titans. They're not really giving up a bunch of points to opposing running backs. I just think this is going to be a game where the Bills score as many points as they usually do, and Zack Moss is the running back you want to play. So for me, he's a back-end RB2 this week and moving forward on this offense. Now, before we get into my must-sits at the running back position, I want to let you guys know we have the Thursday night game on tonight, the Eagles versus the Buccaneers. We were just talking about it, and it's always fun to watch your fantasy teams during that game, but you might not even have players in that game. You might, be a little bit bored while you're watching it. One of the best things you can do is get a little bit of skin in that game. Go on to underdogfantasy.com. The link will be in the description. It'll be down below in the comments. It'll have my promo code. It'll bring you right to the app, to the website, whatever you want to see. Now, Underdog offers a really cool pick'em game where you can go in there, guess the over-under of receiving yards, rushing yards, passing yards, all of that good stuff. Anything you could possibly think of for that game. And if you can parlay, 3, 4, 5 of them together, you can 3x, 6x, 10x your money. It's a really cool way to have some extra fun on Thursday night. You can go out there, use my promo code RON. When you deposit $10 or more, you get a $10 bonus. So if you get, you put in $10, you get 3 of them right, you get back $30 profit. Now, I'll be honest, I'm pretty bad at these player props, but one that I like, you can either lose money with me or you can bet against me. You can bet the under, but I like the over on Miles Sanders receiving yards 23.5. Now, we're going to call Miles Sanders a sit in a second here, but I think in this game script, they're going to get behind early. They're going to abandon the run game, and Miles Sanders is actually kind of slowly taking a hold of those passing down snaps from Kenny Gainwell. So I think that he might get a couple targets here and there. He might break one off pretty big. It's going to be a game where the Eagles are forced to pass the ball a lot. So I like that prop. If you want to bet it, if you want to bet against it, you can use promo code RON when you deposit $10 or more on Underdog Fantasy, and you get a bonus $10 on top of that. So Miles Sanders in terms of fantasy, right? So 23.5 receiving yards. If he gets like 30 receiving yards, doesn't make him a great start in fantasy. So I actually have him as a sit this week. He's going to be at home against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on the Thursday night game tonight. And he's been an RB3 or worse in fantasy the last 3 weeks. And that's where he'll probably stay for me this week in the weekly rankings. He's probably going to be, RB 30-ish. And the Bucs are giving up the 8th least points per game to opposing running backs. And they're facing the league's biggest pass funnel. Now, again, this is going to be the chart from David Zack, and this pass funnel favors Gainwell much more. Now, like I said, Miles Sanders has kind of creeped up and taken some of the passing down work from Kenny Gainwell. Kenny Gainwell used to have almost all of it. Now they're kind of splitting it. I wouldn't say 50-50, but like 60-40. So that opens up some opportunity for Miles Sanders after seeing, I want to say, 5 to 6 targets last week. So I'm expecting them to abandon the run game. Miles Sanders will probably get under 10 rush attempts, and this is going to be a game where Miles Sanders is going to have to pray for a touchdown or a long, reception out of the backfield. For me, he's a, fringe RB3 this week. Then we have Damien Harris at home against the Dallas Cowboys, and he's been a rough start the last few weeks. He's been the RB27, the RB50, and the RB57, and I think Damien Harris is still a fringe RB2 rest of season for me. But he's more of a back-end RB3 in this really bad game script. Dallas is only -4, but I think that the Cowboys are going to force the Patriots to have to catch up a little bit here. They play at a high pace, they pass the ball a lot, they score a lot, and they're allowing the 5th least points per game to opposing running backs and are the 3rd biggest pass funnel in the league, meaning, this isn't going to be a game script where Harris is going to thrive. Harris is a grinder type back. He's going to get the between the 20s touches, some of the goal line work. He's not going to be a receiving back. That's going to be what Brandon Bolden does out of the backfield. So in this game script, I don't think there's going to be enough rush attempts for him to be extremely relevant. So for me, he's going to be in that RB3 range. You can probably leave him on your bench if you have a better RB2 to put ahead of him. Then we have a whole gang of running backs. We have the Seahawks running backs in Pittsburgh. And I have no clue who's starting this week between Chris Carson, Alex Collins. I know Chris Carson has a really weird neck injury at this point. Just be aware of, who's injured and who's not. It's too early in the week for me to make that call. But regardless, whoever's starting, I don't really like them as a top 24 option. because Chris Carson's going to be playing, hurt. Maybe he doesn't get a full workload if Alex Collins is all the way fired up. One, he isn't that good, and two, this is a really tough defense to play against in Pittsburgh, and this is going to be the first ever start for my Geno Smith from the Jets. I love Geno Smith. I actually think that he was pretty bad, but I don't think he was that awful when he was here, but he still isn't an NFL style caliber quarterback. He hasn't played meaningful snaps since like 2015 at this point. So I think that this offense is going to get eaten alive. Their offensive line isn't that good. TJ Watt will be out there. Melvin Ingram will be out there. Casey Hayward's going to give him problems. Like that defense is going to eat the Seahawks alive. They also allow the fourth least fantasy points to opposing running backs. So I think this game script is going to be really rough on the Seahawks. I think this is just a really, really bad matchup for your first game with a new quarterback. So I think it's going to be a bad game script for them. And for that, I'm not trying to start any of those Seahawks running backs if I can help it. Our last sit of the week is going to be Devontae Booker at home against the Los Angeles Rams. And Booker was grabbed off waivers this week, and if you got him, you're probably thinking, okay, he's going to be an instant RB2. I don't think so this week. This is a really tough matchup against the Rams. They're 10-point underdogs at home. The game script is going to be awful. There's not going to be a lot of rush attempts game scripted in for them. And we have the Rams D-line with Aaron Donald, which is going to be really scary for the Giants up front. There's going to be Mike Glennon playing quarterback if Daniel Jones doesn't get cleared by the weekend. So this could be a really, really bad matchup for Devontae Booker. I could see him getting 15 touches for 50 yards, but for me, I think he's going to be a RB3, probably a high-end RB3, not someone that I would be dying to start in fantasy. That's going to do it for us today, fellas. And as always, thank you to our sponsor for today, Underdog Fantasy. They get me that much closer to doing this full time, where they actually give me some kind of an income for doing what I love, fantasy football. So make sure you go check them out. I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing right now in front of you with this microphone if it wasn't for them. So make sure you check them out. Use my promo code RON when you deposit for your first time to get a $10 bonus. Promo code RON. The link will be in the description. It'll be down below in the comments. Now, I love you guys. I'll see you tomorrow with my wide receiver start sits. And as always, I'll see you guys in the next one.
Yup.